Hello, hello, welcome everyone. This is Dan Cohen. You are watching Uncaptured Media. I'm going to be joining you in just a second. If you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor and let me know if you can hear this all right. I'm struggling with some technical difficulties, just having a few technical difficulties trying to get them all hammered out, worked out. So if you can let me know if you're seeing things okay on YouTube. That would be great. You can also go to my website, uncaptured.media, and stream from there, or stream.uncaptured.media. But if you watch from uncaptured.media, you will see this stream embedded there. So, all right, I got a thumbs up, so that's great. Very happy about that. There is a lot that goes into trying to do this, and I appreciate everyone's patience. Again, my name is Dan Cohen. This is Uncaptured Media. I am a journalist. I, by definition, am a filmmaker because I've made some films, though I don't exactly consider myself, I don't think of myself that way. But I'm working on a variety of things. I eschew the term independent journalist, which is often used for me. It's just a term that I think is almost meaningless at this point. There's independent journalism is not exactly a real thing, because when people go to be independent journalists, what inevitably happens is they get on social media, and they start a Substack or something like that, and these are not independent platforms. These are not corporate platforms that are simply flawed. These are, as the biologist Jonathan Cooey has elucidated, these are military intelligence platforms. Social simulations, I think, is one of the terms he uses that I think is very useful. And so that's why you don't really see me on there. And I'm in the process, and what I've been doing, among other things, is building my own platform. That's why I'm not using Substack. I'm using my own channel, uncaptured.media, my own site. I'm building my own PeerTube, which is where I hope you'll be watching this from. And these are ideas that I credit to Jonathan Cooey and Mark Kulak of Houstonic.live or Houstonic.its. Those are really the only two people who I see doing anything serious on a regular basis, at least in the United States. There are, I really can't, sadly, I can't really point to anyone else who I see making progress is really what it's about. So I have gone from independent journalist in the sort of podcast world, doing whatever interview whatever channel asked me for an interview, to and over for about a decade I spent, among other things, in journalism, largely working on the question of Palestine and Zionism, and I have, I would say, a great deal of knowledge and experience, and I sort of eschew the term expertise, but it is a real thing. And I see that all as secondary to what is going on in not only in the United States, in my country, but all over. And that is, as you can see in the title, if you look at the title, I called this "Indian Fentanyl is Killing Americans for the Human Genome Project." And I don't think you'll find many people talking about that outside of Jonathan Cooey, Mark Kulak, and myself. And it wasn't, if it were not for their work, I would not have been able to figure that out myself. And so I kind of want to start off the show here by discussing a bit of how I've made this transition, and or how I'm seeing things differently, and the reason actually that I first came into contact with Jonathan Cooey of Genome Biological, or Mark Kulak of Houstonic ITS. And let me show you their websites here, which are very much worth Sorry, that's my website. Oh, which I thought you'd be able to. I thought you'd be able to see this stream there. I don't know. Maybe you can't though. But anyway, these are their websites. um, that is GigaOhm Biological on the left. That is Housatonic.live, or I think he calls it Housatonic ITS Information Technology Systems. I think that stands for. That's what Mark calls his channel on the right there. So that's those guys have really, their work has really changed my understanding, and the way I actually got to their the way I got to them was actually examining the lab leak story over the first couple of years of the COVID era. And by 2022, I had realized that the lab leak story, which was basically never ending, was nonsense, was a national security script that was mainstreamed over a period of time, where it was deployed among what people call the right wing, the Trump administration and Tom Cotton, these types in early 2020, and the Steve Bannon network. And then it was slowly mainstreamed to the point where people, liberals who had previously denounced it as racist and against Asians, had embraced it as the most likely explanation for the origin of COVID-19. And that was obvious to me from the start that it was nonsense, though I got mixed up on many other things. But when it really kind of came in, when it became so clear for me, I ended up, to make this story a bit shorter, I reached out to Jonathan Cooey to basically to get his understanding of why, as he says, a pandemic is actually a biologically impossible event or concept. An RNA virus cannot pandemic. So that gave a biological, scientific explanation for what I saw as a massive propaganda campaign, that this indeed was impossible. So since then, I have been watching what they've done, though during the war on Gaza period, that moved to the forefront for me, and that's a subject of, I guess, expertise for me. But nonetheless, I want to get to the meat of what we're talking about. So there's a couple things. The title of this stream, again, is Indian Fentanyl is Killing Americans for the Human Genome Project. And so what I'm going to be doing is doing my best to show how fentanyl from India is killing Americans, and how that is how COVID-19 and the fentanyl crisis are part of this process for the real goal of the Human Genome Project. And that might sound crazy to your ears if you're on social media, if you have not been paying attention to the work of, in particular, Jonathan Cooey and Mark Kulak for the last couple of years. And so I'm just going to show you here that here is Jonathan Cooey's website, GigaOhm Biological, and he's been talking about this for years. So I want to make sure that I'm properly crediting the people from whom I have learned this knowledge. So I'm just gonna, again, this is GigaOhm Biological. His website, stream.gigaohm.bio, is where you can find this. And these are different clips that he's cut up. You can see Housatonic, that's Mark's channel. The Batcave is Jonathan Cooey's archive, I think. And these are some clips someone has cut up from Earth GigaOhm clips. So I want to just show this brief explanation that, is from, maybe a year ago or more, of Cooey explaining what the Human Genome Project is ongoing. I want to show that, because there's really two people talking about this, and this is such a massive thing. And once you start to pull on this thread, as I've been doing, and I'm going to show in this stream, it's just absolutely remarkable. So here is Jonathan Cooey giving a 2-minute sort of abridged version of how the Human Genome Project is ongoing.
The Human Genome Project, HGP. The Human Genome Project is ongoing. It's not over. There was a Nature paper in 2005 where they claimed that they had finally finished it, but if you read the fine details, what you will see is that the Human Genome Project at best what was achieved is that some perspective had been established to how great the task would be. And every time they add a new species to the list of species that have been sequenced, what you're essentially looking at is a landmark map being made of that organism, a landmark map that has some pattern across organisms that they can generalize with and use as a way to probe an otherwise unprobable complexity. But they don't know anything beyond that. The Human Genome Project doesn't know anything beyond that. In fact, the greatest and most lauded achievement of the Human Genome Project is the ever decreasing cost of making synthetic DNA and synthetic RNA, which can be used to make biologics, to make proteins that they can then study, can be used for transfection and transformation of laboratory animals. And so in trying to understand the biology of DNA and RNA, the one thing that the Human Genome Project did achieve is it achieved many different technologies which enable us to make DNA, sequence DNA. And that's essential because studying a single molecule or a molecule that's singly present in a cell is incredibly difficult. And in fact, probably not being done with the fidelity that has been implied by the Human Genome Project. We understand very little. And so that's the first idea.
So that clip is actually, it looks like it's from 2024. Let's see, probably before November 17th, 2024. So that clip is within, I guess, a year and a half old, at least by now. But you know, what I'm trying to do here is properly credit the people who have enriched my understanding. And I think it's really important for people to also understand how there are social media actors who steal ideas, and that is their job. And Jonathan Cooey in particular, I think the analysis that he has developed has made him, I'm going to bring myself on there, has made him a threat to the national security state, because if the Human Genome Project is the intellectual and its intellectual authors are the intellectual authors of COVID-19, of faking a pandemic, of staging a pandemic, of reducing Americans and others to the status of laboratory animals, of facilitating the greatest upward transfer of wealth in history, of killing huge amounts of people and lying about it and destroying livelihoods, and exacerbating real drug overdose epidemics, things like that. And this project is hiding in plain sight. Then the person who is pointing it out and has the requisite expertise and the wherewithal to understand what's going on and to expose it, then that person is a threat. And so the national security state will throw everything possible at anyone who is doing this. And so I made a video a few weeks ago while I was visiting my wife's family in Spain, where I just need to get some stuff off my chest about independent journalism being a farce. Social media is a national security operation. Podcasts are a national security operation. Again, I'm really learning a lot from Cooey here. This is, a lot of that is his language. And I want to show that, from time to time, I do use language that I see that I think is really useful from Cooey. And I don't mean, my intention is not to plagiarize or take ideas or anything like that. And I think he can be a bit sensitive to that, and I understand why. Because there are people who are specifically deployed to do that. And this is what you see in this Twitter exchange. I mean, the last thing I want to do is show Twitter exchanges. I hope this is the least interesting thing to me. But I'm going to see if I can zoom in some. Okay, so a podcast called Geopolitics and Empire. I don't know exactly who this guy is. I've seen him before, but he says, yeah, Dan's right. Okay, so he wanted me to come on his podcast. I'm not interested in going on more podcasts. I have very limited time. I'm just interested in doing my stream. I'm working. I raise a family. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I take care of a family. I don't have time to do other podcasts or shows or whatever. I'm just trying to focus on mine and learning as much as I can and getting things right. And also learning the technical setup of all of this, which is very challenging. So this guy, Nick Hudson, who's a South African who runs an organization called Pandemic Data, I guess. He comes in and says, I think he's right, meaning I'm right, Dan Cohen is right. I think he's right that many podcasts are wittingly or unwittingly national security operations. Oddly, though, both his mentions, JJ Cooey and Houstonic Live, so that's Jonathan Cooey and Mark Kulak, turned on me suddenly with the most trivial of claimed causes. I know people are no good when, if they begin to doubt someone they'd befriended, instead of picking up the phone to share their concerns privately, they escalate straight to criticism on a public forum. That's not coherent behavior, so you know that when that happens, you're dealing with manipulators, or at least people who have gone mad in the face of madness. If I ever have a doubt about you or something you'd said, expect a call or at least a few messages and a genuine effort to understand where you're coming from. Okay, so that sounds really nice and flowery and let's just all get along and we're all friends here. But the reality is we're not all friends here. This isn't like we're hanging out like, we're schoolmates or college roommates or something like that. The only reason when I used to be active on Twitter is because I thought it was a place for exchange of ideas and where, your idea could win out. But that's not what it actually is. But so he's got a wrong assumption there, first of all. Now, I responded to him. I've never seen you present any original thought, but I've watched you plagiarize J.J. Cooey's analysis and even specific language in order to co-opt and render it meaningless, all while rubbing elbows with the shadiest spooks in the fake health freedom movement. Cooey has publicly criticized me too, and he has. He has called me out on his stream before, and, here's what I say. But I take it in a constructive way because, unlike you, I'm trying to escape from the maze instead of keeping people trapped inside it. Now, let me say this. Jonathan Cooey said many times that Nick Hudson's organization, Pandata, lost, you see my scare quotes, recordings of 3 times that he presented to his organization. So if you wanted to steal someone's ideas, someone's original ideas that they've been developing, and someone who really is a threat to the national security state, and take them and water them down, well, that would just be the perfect way to do it, is to just invite him. We're going to invite you to present and get your whole analysis, at least at that period, which you've been building over a period of years, and then we'll take it and make it, we won't credit you, we'll just start using it. And that's what you see Nick Hudson frequently does. So Nick Hudson uses language that Jonathan Cooey applies himself and does not credit him. So here's Nick Hudson's response. Well, by JJ's own repeated admission, this is so boring. I would never regard any person who takes up ideas that I generated as stealing them. I was in the habit of crediting him until he went bananas. We did not lose recordings. I can't remember the precise details. Okay, that's pretty much all you need to know from what he says here. We did not lose his recordings, but then he says he can't remember the precise details. So he doesn't say that what Jonathan Cooey alleges is wrong. He doesn't say, no, he's wrong, we published those, or here they are, something like that. 3 times he lost the recordings. If I interviewed someone or someone presented to me 1 time and I lost it, I'd be extremely embarrassed and very sheepish to ask them to present again. Okay? If I did it 2 times, I would just, I don't know, I would be humiliated. I would be very embarrassed. But I would not have the gall, the chutzpah, to go back and say again, do it again. You have major problems at that point. A third time, there's no way that's not intentional. So it's clear that this is an effort by this guy Nick Hudson to steal ideas. Now, this sentence, moreover, I would never regard any person who takes up ideas that I generated as stealing them. He's saying there's no such thing as plagiarism. There is such a thing as an original idea. There is such a thing as plagiarism. This guy doesn't generate original ideas. He steals them and tries to pass them off as his own, or pretend that, an idea is just something that comes to you and anybody can have that idea, so it's not really yours, or we're all just friends here, so he could just call me on the phone or something like that. No, this guy is a thief. He's a plagiarist. And what's really remarkable is at the end, after this long explanation, he says, happy to chat, this is to me, happy to chat over a Zoom. If you're not, then you're the suspicious one here. So, because I don't want to spend my time Zooming on a Zoom call with someone who has a clear track record of losing presentations, who is dishonest, who I suspect of being a national security actor, then that makes me a potential national security actor? No. That just means I have priorities with my time, and I don't want to give it to this snake. That's it. So this is what I'm trying to demonstrate here, is the level of my wife calling me. The level of malevolence. Wow, there's okay. Just a second. Okay, the level of malevolence, and not only malevolence, but sophistication. How this guy who might seem nice, just give me a call, the lengths he goes to in order to steal the ideas of Jonathan Cooey and water them down and remove them from their intellectual author and discredit them, thereby destroying those ideas that he claims to be sort of interested in. So you got to understand the level of sophistication that the national security state will use. And I mean, part of, one of the things I also want to make clear is, if I'm not properly crediting where some of these ideas I get, that's my own fault or laziness or mistake or whatever. My own, it's not laziness, it's just not, thinking as much as I should. That's a completely different thing than what this guy's doing. That's what I want to say about that. So, let's see if I can zoom back out here. Okay. All right. So, what I'm going to be talking about here in this stream is, again, the name of it is Indian Fentanyl is Killing Americans for the Human Genome Project, and on the thumbnail I put India and the opioid data pipeline. So first of all, I want to explain how that I published a piece several months ago, which you can see here, showing very significant evidence, making a very strong case that the fentanyl crisis over the last several years, particularly since 2019, that India has played a very significant and quite possibly a leading role in supplying the fentanyl and fentanyl precursors that are killing Americans, young Americans in particular, by the hundreds per day. And this should be understood as the most severe crisis that our country is facing, that the United States is facing. And you don't see anything on social media about that. It's barely a headline anywhere. And I think that's not by accident. So I just looked at reports from the US government, from law enforcement, showing that India has been increasing its supply. So, what I'm going to show, in 2018, China was beginning to take, well, in 2018, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, that's, an establishment think tank, was warning that India, which was sending tramadol through to African countries and fueling and creating an opioid crisis, a synthetic opioid crisis in parts of Africa and the Middle East, was not regulating fentanyl that was going to the United States and other countries. The report cautioned that India's trafficking networks were expanding and could soon emerge as major suppliers to the United States. Now, at that time, the U.S. government, Donald Trump was the president then, pressured or used some kind of diplomatic pressure to compel China to take measures against fentanyl exports to the United States. China enacted a sweeping class-wide ban on all fentanyl-related substances and precursor chemicals, and they launched an enforcement campaign. And what you saw is the data that was available showed a very significant decrease from interceptions at the from U.S. Customs and Border Protection. 96% decline in 1 year, from 2018 to 2019, of Chinese fentanyl. Now, that's a pretty remarkable amount. India, however, did not do that. Did not take a class-wide, make a sweeping class-wide ban that China did. India, the United States government didn't even ask India to do that. As far as I can tell, there was the Trump administration didn't ask India to stop sending fentanyl to the United States. It just banned, rather than a class-wide scheduling regime, it banned only the most common precursor chemicals. And for a chemist, that's very easy to sidestep. And so these criminal networks, that some of which had been based in China, they were sending from China, they just moved their operations to India. They would send to India, or they would be based in India, and then either send directly to the United States or work with Mexican cartels to traffic fentanyl into the United States and kill Americans. And this is basically, there were more reports that from the United States government, from the UN, from the DEA, that warned that India was becoming a main source of fentanyl as China tightened restrictions. So you can find this article on my site, Uncaptured Media, and that will basically, lays out the case that I'm making here as far as why I believe that India is the primary supplier of fentanyl to the United States. Okay. Now, this is our kind of jumping off point for this stream, this show. A key figure in that period is this guy named Rahul Gupta. Rahul Gupta, I love the first sentence in his Wikipedia is so, it's just so revealing about Wikipedia. It says Rahul Gupta is an American physician from the state of West Virginia. Yeah, he is not from the state of West Virginia. Rahul Gupta, not that there can't be Indian immigrants in West Virginia, but Rahul Gupta was not born in West Virginia. He was not raised in West Virginia. Gupta, early life, was born in India and raised in a suburb of Washington, D.C. His father is a diplomat. Now, I tried to figure out Who is Rahul Gupta's father? He came here apparently as a child when his father was a diplomat, raised in a suburb of DC, but there's no information beyond that about, who is his father? Some high-ranking Indian government official who was stationed here in, I don't know what, the 1970s or 1980s? I don't know. You cannot find that information. Here is a Politico article about hailing Rahul Gupta, the immigrant doctor who's solving West Virginia's opioid crisis in 2018. Okay. First of all, the opioid crisis in 2018 in West Virginia was heinous, absolutely horrible. But first, Politico doesn't bother to explore who is Rahul Gupta's father. It just says Gupta, the son of an Indian diplomat. Well, which Indian diplomat? That seems like an interesting bit of information that any journalist would want to explore, unless of course they're told, don't touch that. Okay? There's no information on that. It's very, very strange, very, very suspicious. And I think that's a question that, if we had real journalists and not stenographers, that's what a journalist would have been looking for in some period. Who is this guy? Okay. He came to West Virginia. We'll just look at this profile. He came to West Virginia in 2009 to lead. Actually, first of all, I want to show you his LinkedIn. You can get some sense of who he is. So, his education, at Delhi University in the late 80s, he got an MD, and then he became a pulmonologist after that in India. So he went back to India. He left the suburbs of DC or wherever he was, and he went back to India and studied medicine there. He did not study medicine in the United States. Okay, so it's not as if he just came to the United States and left everything Indian, and he went back to India with his, I don't know if his anonymous father, who we're not allowed to know who he is, was in India or was still in the United States at that point, but that's, he went back to India for school. Then he came back to the United States. Look at his work here. Okay, he worked in different colleges and teaching medicine, and in 2009, March 2009, he was appointed as a local health officer and executive director of the largest local health department in West Virginia. Now, West Virginia, again, had the absolute worst of the overdose crisis, the opioid overdose crisis. Okay? Take a look. Here is 2009. So this blue line is West Virginia. The black line is the United States average, okay? In 2009, right in there is when Rahul Gupta becomes this top official in West Virginia. What happens after? Opioid deaths climb up to almost triple the national average. The national average right around here is 12.3, 12.5 in 2010. But in West Virginia, it's about, 31.5 to 31.9, 32. I don't know exactly what it is right there. But that's way worse. So, by all measures, there was no success when Rahul Gupta was put in that position as the Commissioner of Public Health and West Virginia state officer. Leader of the executive director of the largest health department in West Virginia. Now, as that crisis is getting worse and worse, we're into now like around 2015, Rahul Gupta is then the chief health officer for the state, not just the county, not just Kanawha Charleston, if it's, I don't know if that's considered county or if it's cities or city designation, but he gets kicked up In January 2015, he becomes the Commissioner of Public Health in West Virginia State Health Officer. And for 3 years and 11 months, let's take a look at what was happening then. The amount of fentanyl deaths, of the opioid deaths, drug overdoses skyrockets even more. So that's what Rahul Gupta, this guy was doing in West Virginia. This Indian national was leading the health departments in the state of West Virginia while the opioid crisis was just getting worse and worse, and more opioids, fentanyl, are coming from his country of birth, where he's from, and we're not allowed to know who his father is. He is a secret Indian diplomat. Is this getting shady yet? This actually makes me feel sick. Okay. Now, after November 2018, he leaves and goes to Arlington, not far from where I am in Washington, D.C. And in Arlington, Virginia, he is the Chief Medical and Health Officer at the March of Dimes. I don't know enough about the March of Dimes. It sounds like a do-gooder kind of medical NGO that there's probably some cynical agenda behind it. That's not something I've really looked at. I will say I did find, so that's from November 2018 to October 2021. So here's one of the statements he gives. This is that I thought was very revealing during that period. Well, amid the COVID-19 era, he is interviewed on COVID-19 vaccine trials.
We know from the safety and efficacy data of the COVID-19 vaccine that they were found to be pretty effective against general population and relatively safe. What we don't know yet is what that clinical trial data would show for pregnant people. So same thing applies to lactating people.
Pregnant people and lactating people. Pregnant people and lactating people. So you see the shift in language that he's using, the kind of like what people call woke language, the trans thing that a man can lactate and be pregnant if a biological female just declares herself to be a man and changes. There's all this nonsense. You can see this guy Rahul Gupta adopting that as is appropriate for the political moment at that time. Okay.
So one of the things we do is there are certain markers to make sure that we have some early data. We have animal studies. We have studies of pregnant people that were included in the initial trials unintentionally. And then we have post-vaccine.
What? I didn't even catch that before. Pregnant people unintentionally, they accidentally included pregnant women in vaccine trials? Does not seem very responsible.
Vaccination data that is being reported right now of people getting vaccinated who may also be pregnant. And through all of the data sets that are coming out, we don't seem to have really a concern at this time for this particular vaccine in pregnancy or in lactation.
So you can see he's just basically a script reader at that point. That's what he's doing there in 2020, 2021, during this period of where he's working for the March of Dimes. Okay. Then what happens to old Rahul Gupta? Well, he gets kicked upstairs. He gets appointed to an even higher position. There he is with the former president of the United States, Joe Biden, who does not look like he's there. Like he knows who's shaking his hand. He's pretty sure there is a hand that he's shaking, but he's not sure if it belongs to his dog or or a person. So that's what Rahul Gupta, after this, the son of the secret Indian diplomat who was in West Virginia leading the state's response to the opioid crisis and absolutely failing by every metric possible, he's just, for that, he gets promoted to that post in the White House. That's incredible. He was the lead member of the 2020 presidential transition of Joe Biden for the Office of National Drug Control Policy. Biden nominated him to be, so it wasn't just 2021 that he was involved, he was in 2020 also, as from the start of the Biden administration. Biden nominated him to be the ONDCP director on July 13th, 2021, and he sworn into office on November 18th. Okay? He was confirmed by the United States Senate on October 28th. So nobody decided to bring up, who is your father? Are you loyal to this country or to the United States? Like any of these obvious questions, are you an Indian citizen still? That seems like a very important question. And we hear it about like Israel all the time, and everyone's going to stop taking AIPAC money, and Tucker's sticking it to Netanyahu and Trump and all this stuff. But, nobody will ask anything about the guy who oversaw the opioid crisis with opioids, fentanyl, coming from his country of birth, if he has what his ties to that country are, to that government, who his father is. No one will ask that, even to this day. Well, aside from me. Okay, now, I just want to show how terrible the opioid crisis was, and still is. This is an amazing passage. 4 out of 5 West Virginians who died from an overdose in 2016 had come into contact with the health system, whether it was during a visit to the emergency room from a prior overdose or a visit to a clinic from a routine checkup. About 71% had or were eligible for Medicaid coverage. So those are the people. So basically, if you died from an overdose, it's probably related to you coming in to contact, or your family member with your family member died from an overdose, because obviously if you died, you're not here to listen to this. But if your family member in West Virginia died from a drug overdose in that period, it's very likely that it's a result of them coming into contact with the health system. So it's more of a death system. And even not just, you had a major injury and you had to take opioids to manage the pain, but just for a visit for a routine checkup. That's remarkable. Okay. So moving on. Again, we look at how terrible it was. There's our guy again. Now, what was this? This is amazing. So Rahul Gupta is now the White House drug czar, is what they're called. That position, I think, is the unofficial title. So what does he do? What does Rahul Gupta? One of the things he does is go to India. He literally went to India to meet. Here's Rahul Gupta here, and this is Dr. Vivendra Kumar, the Social Justice and Empowerment Minister. The Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, and this stuff's just sitting on Facebook on this official page from India's Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Okay, I'm going to show you a few of these pictures. So here they are meeting. So the likely Indian citizen Rahul Gupta is going to his home country to meet with a government official about about opioids and fentanyl exports and overdoses in the United States. Do you see what a massive conflict of interest that is? And nobody said anything about it. Nobody that I recall. I don't think anyone's ever brought this up. Like, if you didn't know who's who, could you tell like who's the government official, the Indian government official, and who's the American government official here? And this isn't about racializing Indians. There are many Indians who contribute greatly to the United States. I have no problem with Indians, but this is a crazy thing. If this was an Israeli, we would hear about it nonstop. If this was Israel was supplying fentanyl to the United States, and the guy who was responsible, the top health official in the state with the worst crisis, was an Israeli, and he went to Israel to meet with his fellow Israeli minister about it, we'd be hearing about it, that's for sure. Okay, so they're very chummy. I want to get back to this picture. I want to identify this guy right here, the guy 2 to the left, the bald guy here. Okay, I don't know if I think my cursor is showing up there. If anyone, I'm not seeing comments, by the way, in case anyone is asking me. I'm just not able to really get on to deal with comments right now. So hopefully I'll improve my work and get the comments. But so this guy, a few people to the left, the bald guy here, that is a guy named Kemp Chester. Okay, Kemp Chester works in the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy. This is that him? I thought that was him. Maybe it's not. Oh no, it's this guy. Sorry, it's not the bald guy. Sorry, bald guy. It's this guy. It's this guy off to the other side. So you have this Indian official. On one hand, you have Rahul Gupta, and on the other hand, this guy, who I suspect is more important than, and why no one's talking about him. This guy's name is Kemp Chester, and I'm gonna just look at his experience, what he has done in his career. Okay, so he's a military man. He was involved in Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm. Scroll up. He was a special assistant and speechwriter to the Office of the Chairman, Joint Chief of Staff in the 1990s. He was involved in Operation Iraqi Freedom, so the invasion of Iraq, and all the way up to U.S. Central Command, Chief of J2 Strategy and Policy. I don't even know what J2 Strategy and Policy is. Then he was a battalion commander in the 344th Military Intelligence Battalion. Chief of Training, Modeling and Simulations in the Army Staff, G2, at the Pentagon. Chief of Ministry of the Interior Intelligence Advisory Team, Advisor to Ministry of Interior, Director of Intelligence at a NATO training mission, Afghanistan. Combined Security and Transition Command, Afghanistan. So think about this guy's role in what was going on in Afghanistan in 2010, 2011. The amount of opioids being grown and transported all over the world at that point, fueling crisis in the United States. And his involvement with NATO and military intelligence. I suspect that this guy, Rahul Gupta, is not actually very influential, or he has a different role, but the brains, in some ways at least, I don't know exactly what it is, but this guy, Kemp Chester, is actually having a tremendous influence. He was then at the DIA, Deputy Director of Intelligence and Chief of Counter-Narcotics, then moved up to the Office of National Drug Control Policy, and he ended up becoming a senior advisor to the Director of International Relations in the President's office until through the Biden era until the beginning of the Trump era, and then Assistant Director of Public Health, the Office of National Drug Control Policy. That is an incredible resume that, should be the subject of investigations. But again, here we are. No one talks about this stuff. And I just happened to find this, by researching. Now, so we have this India visit. Rahul Gupta with his team and what is it, Kemp Chester in India in 2022. Well, the opioid crisis. I mean, think about that. The opioid crisis is like at its worst ever in American history right there. And a lot of that fentanyl is coming from India, more and more. And this is what they're doing, hanging out in India, taking pictures. Okay? And they go here to see a drug rehabilitation center. Well, that's nice.
Thank you very much for spending time and visiting us. And sir, this is the place where we treat children who are.
Okay, so they learn about children who are getting treated for opioid addiction, in somewhere in India. I don't know how that benefits the children of West Virginia or anywhere else in the United States who have lost their parents or family members to opioid overdoses, but I don't think it does. Now, in 2024, Politico came out with this piece about how Rahul Gupta has created a toxic office environment. They make him sound like kind of a prima donna who is not leading the office well, and there's all kinds of the office is not operating effectively. And this article accuses him of based on several current and former officials, so it's anonymous. He put unrealistic pressure on his small team to raise his public profile, becoming frustrated when staff were unable to land meetings with a high-ranking official during his travels. In the public-facing role, Gupta travels domestically and abroad frequently, and staff often felt he had unrealistic demands about his travel accommodations. You know, I don't know. He canceled one trip last year after months of planning when he didn't want to fly Southwest Airlines, etc., etc. He also once calculated the square footage of a hotel room and then requested staff book him a larger room, and he liked to roll up to events, including weekend embassy parties, in a black government SUV with staff, even though that sort of service is not typically used by ONDCP directors for events unrelated to the office's direct work. So I don't know. You know, this makes it sound like he was, trying to soak it up in the position. But I think that really misses the obvious, massive scandal. However true this is, I have no idea. You know, it's all just based on anonymous sources. The obvious scandal is that this man oversaw the worst of the opioid crisis, and as the more Americans died, the better his career went. The more Americans died, the higher office he achieved. That is the real scandal of Rahul Gupta. Not he wanted a bigger hotel room. Sure, but that's peanuts. What's remarkable in this video is he actually, you never hear anyone talking about India. I mean, aside from, Mark Kulak and me and Jonathan Cooey, you'll never hear anyone in mainstream anywhere talk about India's role in the fentanyl crisis. And not even saying that, what I'm saying, that India is clearly a major or primary supplier, but even just mentioning it, like you will only hear about China and Mexican cartels. But listen to this.
With the threat of tariffs, what does that mean in your view? I mean, this is an important thing. It's very prominent in the rhetoric and statements, the most recent press conference and various other statements made. It's out there. It's very, very clear.
Well, two things. First, President Biden has led the way on making sure that there is progress being made, not just talk, when it comes to work with China, work with Canada, work with Mexico, and work with India. Because we want to make sure that the bad guys don't shift the chemical industry from China to India when the pressure is on the chemical companies in China.
That is exactly what happened. And this interview was done in 2024. It had already happened at that point. It had already happened. In fact, December 2024, is that what I said? Yeah, December 2024, the opioid crisis was starting to go down at that point. And Rahul Gupta would end up getting credit for it. So this is remarkable. India had already replaced China, at least as the base of operations. And look at what else Rahul Gupta is saying. One way to solve the world's problems. White House official on closer U.S.-India ties. It's important for the safety, security, and health of the world that the two nations accelerate their partnership. So more and more Americans are dying, and this guy who was tasked with overseeing the response to the opioid crisis in the state with the worst crisis is saying what we need to do is have closer ties with the country that I'm from, that's supplying the fentanyl, that's killing the people that I'm supposed to represent, and you're not allowed to know who my father is. That's just incredible. Now, Rahul Gupta's, what's he doing in the Trump era? What's he doing since he left the White House in February 2025? He left from his position as the Director of National Drug Control Policy. He is now, as we see, since February, the president of something called GATC Health. Okay? As the president of GATC Health, I lead a dynamic team at the forefront of using artificial intelligence technology to advance personalized healthcare solutions through cutting-edge genomic data analysis and precision medicine. We are passionate about providing individuals with actionable insights into their health, empowering them to make informed decisions that enhance their quality of life. So in other words, what that is the Human Genome Project. That is the Human Genome Project, okay? You're going to see that here. Here's the press release from GATC Health when he was hired. This is remarkable. Dr. Gupta's forward-thinking policies while at the White House delivered a remarkable turnaround in overdose deaths, saving over 27,000 lives in 2024, a 24% decrease year over year. He's getting credit for the drug overdoses going down a little bit. Here's national, okay? So when he took over in the White House, in fact, at the White House, this is all opioids. This is all drug overdoses. He took over and they shot up, but they basically doubled from when he took over, roughly. But they're saying GATC Health is hiring him because he did such a good job with them going down at the end of 2024. Spitting in the face of the dead and the survivors is what that is. Okay, that's what GATC Health is doing there. Now, GATC Health was formed in 2020, I believe. And here is their offering or their solicitation to Wall Street to get investors. This is Manhattan Street Capital, manhattanstreetcapital.com. And here's their pamphlet, their brochure about the market opportunity. GATC Health sits at the center of 4 growing markets: genetic testing, AI in healthcare, personalized medicine, and the world longevity economy. Again, this is the Human Genome Project. I understand that because I've been watching the work of Jonathan Cooey of Genome Biological. Okay, artificial intelligence in healthcare, worth $120 billion by 2028. Hey, that's a pile of money. Not huge, but it's a pile of money. Okay, I mean huge by my standards, and I mean, that's unbelievable in my wildest dreams. I wouldn't want that much money. There's no way to obtain that much money without doing something horrible, like being involved in this. But in terms of like the grand scale of things and what actually makes countries move, 120 billion, okay. Let's keep going. Personalized and precision medicine, 493 billion and growing. Hey, now we're getting somewhere. That's growing. The world longevity economy, $27 trillion in the next 5 years. This is from 2022, this pamphlet, this brochure. So between 2022 and 2027, the period in which we are currently living, the world longevity economy will be worth $27 trillion. That is far more than the GDP of most countries. I didn't do the calculations, but I think that's far more than the GDP of many countries combined. That is an almost incomprehensible amount of money. That's what we're dealing with here, okay? And that's why you don't hear anything about it. People are paid to not talk about this stuff. That's why Tucker Carlson's not talking about it. That's why, I don't know, all the big podcasts you see, all the big shows that are getting to the bottom of the Epstein files, and they're going to get Donald Trump to release the Epstein files, and Thomas Massey's going to get him to do it, and whatever the next clown in the clown car is, they're not talking about this. This is a pretty remarkable title of a video I came across. So I'm not even going to play the video. So this is on their website, GATC Health's YouTube, rather. A whopping 148 views. You can tell nobody's paying attention to what's actually happening. GATC Health webinar, Unlocking Capital. New trial financing backed by Lloyd's of London. Lloyd's of London, located in the city of London, and which has played, I don't know, a role in, I think it's the largest insurer in the world, rather, and played important roles in, I don't know, the transatlantic slave trade and slavery in the Americas. But don't worry, guys. They've come clean about it. Our historical links to the transatlantic slave trade. And they are very sorry. I just want to make sure that Lloyd's of London, their reputation is not taking a hit here. Because from 1640, as they admit, to the early 19th century, an estimated 3.2 million enslaved African people were transported by Britain's vast shipping industry. Lloyd's was the global center for ensuring that industry. We are deeply sorry for the Lloyd's market participation in the transatlantic slave trade. It is part of our shared history that caused enormous suffering and continues to have a negative impact on Black and ethnically diverse communities today. You can tell they're really sorry because they capitalized the B in Black. That's what they want you to think. But this is clearly a very real apology, and they would never have anything to do with anything nefarious, happening in 2026. That's all 1640 to the 19th century. That's just a couple hundred years, and 200 years ago, sure, they're they just made a mistake. That's why pencils have erasers. Okay. I would love to learn more about this, but it's pretty remarkable. That's who's investing. Lloyd's of London is investing in GATC Health. Okay. Now, Rahul Gupta was in West Virginia. Okay. West Virginia, I'm going to say I was born in West Virginia. I was born in Wheeling, West Virginia, because apparently there wasn't a hospital in Morgantown, West Virginia, where my family lived. I have deep roots, 100 years or so. Deep roots, I guess, by American standards, or medium-sized roots, medium-depth roots in Western Pennsylvania. My paternal grandfather, on my father's side, my paternal grandfather, my paternal grandmother were first generation immigrants. Their parents came from Lithuania to the United States, and they lived in Western Pennsylvania, around the Pittsburgh area, Uniontown, where and in Morgantown, my grandparents started a furniture store called Cohen Furniture in Morgantown, West Virginia. Now, so I lived there until I was 4 years old. I lived in Morgantown until I was 4, and then we moved to Phoenix, Arizona, which is where I grew up. It's where my maternal grandparents were retiring, and my mom wanted to be out there, closer to where she's from. So, but I nonetheless maintain a connection to this area, to Morgantown, to Western Pennsylvania, that whole area. So this is a particularly interesting one for me because this is on the westvirginia.gov website where they are promoting, and I think they granted money, the Department of Commerce. Here's on the West Virginia Department of Commerce YouTube channel, probably given grants to GATC Health. Advancing medicine and AI in hashtag YesWV. Okay, so they're trying to promote, or at least the idea is they're promoting business. So in this state, again, that had the absolute worst of the opioid crisis. So take a look at this.
My name is Tyrone Lamb. I'm the Chief Business Officer of GATC Health.
Okay, this guy, Tyrone Lamb, he is not a biologist or scientist at all. I think he's a PR guy. He's professionally a PR guy. So he has basically no expertise to be talking about what he's going to be talking about here, and you're going to see that. And of course, this is highly produced.
Health. And we're a technology company using AI to discover safer, more effective medications. We're headquartered in Southern California, in Irvine, California, and we've set up a laboratory and drug discovery operations in Morgantown, West Virginia. So we're hiring folks in Morgantown and discovering the drugs that that the AI has discovered and have tested. We're actually building those drugs in Morgantown, West Virginia.
They're hiring folks in Morgantown, West Virginia. I mean, that makes it sound like, they're just getting like country bumpkins like my grandfather did when he owned his furniture store to come work in the, come work. Hey, why don't you come on down, work in the lab with us. See if we can solve, if we can figure out how to engineer disease or engineer biology. That's not what's going on.
Covered and have tested. We're actually building those drugs in Morgantown, West Virginia. If we have tested that the AI has discovered the drugs that the AI has discovered and have tested, we're actually building those drugs in Morgantown, West Virginia.
You hear that one more time.
And discovering the drugs that we've in Morgantown and discovering the drugs that that the AI has discovered and have tested, we're actually building those drugs.
Discovering the drugs that the AI have discovered. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. That's what GATC Health is putting out as their video explaining, and the West Virginia Department of Commerce is putting out to explain what this organization, what this company GATC Health is doing, by someone who doesn't have any background in medical science or biology, who is a PR guy by career. The
drugs that that the AI hiring folks in Morgantown and discovering the drugs that that the AI has discovered and
discovering the drugs that the AI has discovered
have tested. We're actually building those drugs
and tested. We're actually building those. I mean,
in Morgantown, West Virginia. If we can use artificial intelligence for so many amazing things, why can't we also use it to mimic human physiology? And by mimicking human physiology, we can
mimic human physiology. That is just a monumental claim. that they, and that's the same claim that, you know, the Human Genome Project has been coming up with. I would love to see Jonathan Cooey go after that. Just respond to this claim that they're mimicking human biology. That's like saying, you know, we've got human biology figured out. We know how to mimic it. And that's just a massive lie. And a disgusting lie.
And understand the source of
And especially coming from this guy who clearly doesn't know anything.
the cause of any disease much better.
I am Jacob Shaya. At GATC Health, I am a business analyst. I was approached by someone in my network in West Virginia, and they said, hey, there's this opportunity at GATC Health for an intern position. Are you interested? So I looked into what they do, and I said immediately, yes, that's awesome. So after a year of being an intern, I started full-time. We have a few drug programs, namely opioid use disorder, PTSD.
Opioid use disorder. They're trying to treat opioid use disorder. We're going to come back to that.
Diabetes, Alzheimer's, all of which has a very high prevalence in West Virginia.
So we can discover, test new drugs in months versus years, a 90% success versus a 10% success, and the cost of doing that is much less.
He's just saying things he's been told to say.
Think of GATC as the AI platform that's going to be feeding the drug discovery pipeline with better, more effective drugs, and then pharmaceutical companies will be able to take those to market. Our first drug, which is furthest along, is the first drug candidate that is a non-opioid to treat opioid use disorder. It's tested very safe, very effective, and we're going into human clinical trials into this year, beginning of next year.
Oh, well, they got a whole bunch of, opioid addicts, or at least, potential opioid addicts, because usually people don't last too long. In West Virginia, that's convenient.
And our hope is that's going to start in West Virginia.
Thanks, Rahul Gupta, president of GATC Health. It's going to start in West Virginia. See?
So
Do you see?
GATC Health says yes to West Virginia because the talent pool is phenomenal. The dedication, there's not a lot of red tape. The incentives that
There's not a lot of red tape. Yeah, they just, let us do whatever we want.
the state offers are second to none. Every business should be looking at West Virginia.
Okay. I was going to show something kind of personal, but I don't really feel like it. It's a bit too emotional. Okay, here's what I'm going to show. This is... Turn myself off here. This picture right here is my daughter in 2021 meeting my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, for the first time in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We were not allowed to meet her before that because of the supposed pandemic. My grandmother worked in that furniture store, in Cohen Furniture, in my family's furniture store, for much of her adult life. They provided, of course, affordable furniture for many people around Morgantown, West Virginia, but they also provided jobs. They were members of their community who were very successful and took care of their family and took care of people who worked for them and did their very best. And she and my grandmother, my bubby, we were not allowed to be with her, as she went from elderly in her 90s, but still very sharp, to under strict isolation in the old folks' home. Her mind melted. She was basically not herself anymore. She was lonely. She was isolated. She told us she felt like she was in solitary confinement, which that is a form of torture, and she was. And so when I was finally allowed to bring my daughter to meet her, this is how we had to meet her, through a piece of plastic. And I know a lot of people experience this kind of thing. And I wish I were aware to just take her out of there at that point. And that's one of the things that motivates me, it's not that I can't forgive myself, but it's one of the things that I think about and motivates me to do this work is my grandmother's memory, because she passed away not too long after this. She was basically, as far as I'm concerned, she was basically killed, manslaughter, maybe you could call it. And that's what happened to my grandmother. And she is from, again, she's from Western Pennsylvania. She lived many years as a small business owner in Morgantown, and that's the kind of people that were killed in order to advance this project, that were isolated, that were driven to misery and tortured in solitary confinement in order to advance this project, using Indian fentanyl to kill Americans for the Human Genome Project. Okay? Here's another video from GATC Health, where the son of the unnamed Indian diplomat, Rahul Gupta, is the president after overseeing the worst of the opioid crisis in American history. This is where he is.
We have discovered a new molecule to treat fentanyl addiction. And with your investment, you can help us bring this new treatment through preclinical trials and to the market to help people like Josephine and Lewis. Josephine struggles with fentanyl addiction, while Lewis feels powerless to help his wife.
GATC Health is a company that discovers and develops.
Okay, so they've discovered a new molecule to treat fentanyl addiction. So instead of, I don't know, maybe compelling India through diplomatic relations to reduce the flow of fentanyl to the United States, to West Virginia, or maybe making this a real priority for the US government, instead, we've got another solution. We're going to figure out how to treat how to deal with, how to use fentanyl addicts or opioid addicts as guinea pigs for the Human Genome Project, and to test drugs on them that maybe can alter their genetics in order to make their fentanyl addiction go away. I don't know exactly what this is, but also we have another Indian lady involved here. Why is this?
In a way that is
Another Indian lady.
GATC Health is a company
Preetaman Wadhwa is the chief marketing officer.
that discovers and develops new medicine using AI in a way that is faster and less costly than traditional pharmaceutical development.
Traditional pharmaceutical development requires sifting through billions of molecules in a guess and check process. This takes years and costs billions of dollars. All the while, people continue.
Wait, was that fentanyl deaths? Was that a graph of fentanyl deaths?
Sifting through billions of molecules in a guess and check process. This takes years and costs.
Oh no, that's just their profits. That's their profits.
Billions of dollars.
Oh no, that's the costs. Okay.
All the while, people continue to suffer. It's a needle in the haystack nightmare.
They got actors of fentanyl addicts for their video. We're like, that's amazing.
GATC Health takes a different approach. Our artificial intelligence platform skips the haystack entirely and simply creates a new needle. How do we do this? Our platform uses advanced AI that accurately models human biology.
It accurately models human biology. Again, this massive claim that is a complete lie. You cannot model human biology. They are lying. They do not have that capability. That's a huge, huge lie.
We feed it massive data sets from public sources like biobanks, universities, and government entities, as well as proprietary
Universities, biobanks, and government entities. So whatever health data is being sucked up by universities, biobanks, the US government, whatever your agreement your doctor's office has, or whatever the medical corporation that runs your doctor's office, that data is being used for this stuff.
data we generate ourselves and get from our partners. Together, this tech has the ability to create exciting new treatment options that are safer and more effective, potentially shaving years off the development timeline and saving hundreds of millions of dollars in the process.
They keep saying that it's going to save time and money. They keep saying that as if it's, the bigger the lie, the more you have to repeat it.
Our fentanyl addiction molecule never existed before we created it in our computer models. This is a true revolution.
We have 2 more medicine candidates in our development pipeline. One to treat cocaine addiction and one for the treatment of PTSD.
Computer models.
Again, this is a PR guy.
We have 2 more medicine candidates in our development. One to treat
the
cocaine
face of the
addiction.
true revolution is this PR guy talking about cocaine addiction.
And one for the treatment of PTSD. Our platform has the ability to produce 6 to 10 new treatments per year. We plan to develop new molecules to treat other devastating diseases.
So it's just these massive claims that are totally unsubstantiated and others clearly false. They're going to make 6 to 10 drugs a year.
It's like cancer, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's. Each new treatment we create could bring hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue to the company.
Do you see? You can see it's so obvious that he is reading a script. Look at his eyes. They're not directly in the camera. It's not natural body language. He's keeping his eyes fixed on one point like this because he has to be reading the script.
Revenue to the company.
Over 250 savvy investors have already invested nearly $20 million in GATC Health. Become an owner and help us improve the future of healthcare. Join us today.
Stuff's sickening. I think this is a remarkable video. Let's see.
Drug coming to market.
Oh, okay. Yes. So as I said, this is a project. GATC Health, this entire thing is the Human Genome Project. You're going to say it explicitly here. Now you're going to see it.
We can reduce that drastically in time and get a much more accurate drug to help more people.
So who is the architect behind this AI technology?
So we have an amazing technology team, but I really want to highlight Ian. Ian is truly a genius, and his background goes back to the Human Genome Project. And I'd also like to mention that Ian is the inventor of predictive multiomics, and that's...
There it is, right there, the Human Genome Project. Now, I don't know, maybe at the beginning of this you were like, well, I don't know, Dan, that sounds crazy. Indian fentanyl is killing Americans for the Human Genome Project. There it is. This guy, Ian, was a researcher, allegedly, in the Human Genome Project.
Ian is the inventor of predictive multiomics, and that's...
Predictive multiomics. Okay, this guy is gonna... This PR guy, Tyrone Lamb, is gonna explain what predictive multiomics are.
It's a way to capture all of that data and predict an outcome more accurately and faster than anyone else.
Well, I'm excited to talk to him in just a minute. I'll say thank you.
Yes, very exciting. Okay, predictive multiomics. It's something apparently they came up with, or probably the thing is, they didn't come up with this. They've been tasked with this. It's the new invention that's been in the works or for years and years. And this is the company that's been put out front of it because it's a national security operation. Just like that's the same reason that, what's his name? Kemp Chester was involved. And they have a Human Genome Project researcher designing this thing. Predictive multiomics is an artificial intelligence-driven platform developed by GATC Health that integrates the whole genome data with multiple biological data sets like proteomics, metabolomics, and microbiomics. By digitally simulating complex human biology, it models how the body will react to diseases or drugs. This is all based on the assumption that they have created an accurate model of human biology, which is far more complex than any scientist in the world knows. And if they're not admitting that, they are lying. And if they're saying that they've modeled human biology, that's just a massive lie. So this whole thing of predictive multiomics in order to come up with drugs to treat opioid addiction, massive, massive lie. From this PR guy who they've stuck out front. Keep going. Okay. Here's our team, the GATC Health, our team. Here's from their, what is this? Is their website? Yes. Here is their team. And here is the guy, Ian Jenkins, the chief science officer and co-founder. Ian Jenkins, apparently is his name. Developer of the science and process of GATC's predictive multiomics. Co-creator of the technology for multiomics advanced technologies. These are trademarked, by the way. Former researcher with the Human Genome Project. Boom, there it is. It's a pretty remarkable, it's an interesting list of people here. This guy, John Stroh, who's worked in biopharma for years and years. Jason Uffens, VP of Engineering for Grubhub, the food delivery app, and head of engineering for Seamless, engineering manager and architect for Northrop Grumman, the military contractor, senior engineering manager for GoDaddy. This is, I don't know, you see this confluence of all these things. So it's very interesting. Maybe Tyrone Lamb is more than a PR guy. I was under the impression that he's just a PR guy, but it was obvious he had no idea he didn't know what he was talking about. We're discovering the drugs that the AI is discovering. That's an absurd line. Here it says he's the co-founder of First Americans Health and Wellness. I don't know. I assume he's got to have some knowledge of something. But, I mean, the key thing here is former researcher with the Human Genome Project, which we saw in the previous video. One of the other things I found was very compelling is, here's this video, how AI can optimize capital allocation. This is from October 2025, one of their meetings with Hartaj Singh, I guess, and another Indian figure involved in this. Again, we're seeing more and more Indians. I assume he's Indian. I'm pretty sure he is. This guy, Thomas Phillipson, former chairman of the White House Council of Economic Advisors. That's a big figure who's in this meeting that's publicized, that's on YouTube with 370 views that no one is paying attention to who's not involved, okay? Thomas Phillipson, I assume, I don't know, Thomas, is a Swedish-born American. So, again, not born in the United States, not from the United States. I'm not saying you cannot be an American citizen or a good American if you're not born here, but it's usually, it's not people who, get wealthy and then come over here and are part of this, whole kind of NATO apparatus or whatever. It's people who come here as, working, who come here to live the American dream, as cliches as that may be, who come here to contribute, taxi drivers, own food stands, this, that. They start at the bottom. They build businesses like my family did in Morgantown and Pittsburgh. That's what they do. They don't come here and, we just become the acting chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors in the Trump administration. That's what he did. So this guy worked in the worked in the University of Chicago, which was founded by the Rockefeller family. And he was appointed by President Donald Trump to become one of 3 members of the Council of Economic Advisors. And he downplayed the public health risk and economic threat of the coronavirus pandemic, going so far as to question the wearing of masks to slow transmission of the disease. Oh, wow, he must be a very subversive guy. Okay? So that's who's involved in this. One of Trump's top advisors, economic advisors, during his first presidency. That's this guy involved in it. Okay? we also have Jason Himes, who is on the board of advisors. This is, again, just see the involvement of Jason Himes was an advisor to the Executive Office of the President of the United States, Office of National Drug Control Policy. And it was in the DEA in Los Angeles, the Medical Board of California. But this guy was at, basically the top of the U.S. government who's involved in this. Names that almost no one has ever heard of. Oh, look, the head of AI for GATC Health is Vaishnavi Narayan, another Indian who studied in India, who was an IBM tech for years in India and studied at Visvesvaraya Technological University in India, and is now the head of AI for this company, for GATC Health. You see the pattern here? Now, this is kind of remarkable. The new drug czar, this is less, I don't know, maybe too much information. The new drug czar is Dr. Stephen Lloyd in West Virginia. This is from September 2024. This guy was appointed as this Dr. Will Price. Sounds like a country bumpkin, and I mean that in the best of ways. I don't mean that as an insult. He was appointed to replace Gupta at one point. Oops. Let's see if we can. And here he is.
Welcome, Dr. Stephen Lloyd.
Thank you.
I would love to know a little bit more
In fact, he got a position. He's being interviewed by GATC Health. Let's hear
about your background.
How'd that happen?
Well, I'm an internal medicine doctor by training. Worked in the hospital for years and taught in medical schools and pharmacy schools. But
so he's an internal medicine doc. Good for him.
I got addicted to prescription pain medication, mainly OxyContin and Xanax, early in my career as a chief resident, my last year of training, and went on about a 4-year run where I got up to about 500 milligrams of OxyContin a day, along with about 6 to 8 milligrams of Xanax.
So he became an opioid addict.
Xanax.
Good for him. He survived.
And I got help in 2004.
Great.
And it not only changed my life, it changed my career.
In 2004. So this is, before, of course, the worst of it, but people were dying then.
I've been practicing addiction medicine solely now for about 13 years. And in all honesty, I didn't even know what addiction was when I was in medical school, addiction medicine. And so it set me on a different career path than anything that I ever imagined, and changed my life in ways that, there's no way I could have seen.
And so what led you to working with the GATC team?
Well, actually meeting Randy Lukavich and Ty Lamb in Washington.
Randy Lukavich. Okay. Randy Lukavich came across this. Premier Holding Corporation. Here he is in the Securities and Exchange Commission, found this there. Premier Holding Corp and its CEO, Randy Lukavich, ordered to pay more than $10 million for securities fraud in 2021. In connection with a fraudulent scheme to mislead Premier's investors about the company's financial health. The final judgments impose, among other monetary relief totaling more than $10.5 million, as well as an officer and director bar against Lukavich. That's who got this country bumpkin Dr. Stephen Lloyd to join up with GATC Health, and this guy, Dr. Lloyd, was, or I don't know if he still is, the Rahul Gupta's replacement as the chief health officer, whatever, in West Virginia.
In D.C., we were up there for a conference, and I guess by happenstance got set at the same end of the table, and I sat down next to Randy and asked him what he did, and he told me, and I was totally floored, because I've been working in this field for a long time, and everything's always the same. We try to tackle the problem the same way we always did, and I'm not saying there hadn't been some good done. There has, and some lives have been saved, but we've lost a lot more lives than we should have. And all of a sudden, I've got somebody sitting here talking to me about utilization of AI, which I barely understand, but I get the implications of it.
Which I barely understand. He's saying, that might be an overstatement, that he doesn't actually know anything about this. He's just along for a ride.
In attacking this from a different standpoint. And
I mean, he just has no, he really has no idea what is being brought into West Virginia, I don't think, which I barely understand. I mean, that's a remarkable admission.
Using AI to develop drugs that are non-opioids. One of the biggest problems that we have is that the medication we use are also opioids themselves. So there's a lot of
like maybe having Rahul Gupta be the chief doctor dealing with the opioid crisis in West Virginia was a bad look. And so they got this doctor with a country accent and a country profile who was an opioid addict himself and nearly died. Having him is much, much more credible.
Stigma around that. Well, you're trading one drug for another, that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, I've got this guy telling me about a company that is using this novel approach to develop a medication that's not an opioid, that actually brings the brain back to what it used to be. It's called homeostasis. Brain wants to stay the same in a way that I had never thought of. And I was immediately hooked, and still am right now.
And so
I mean, yeah, that's incredible. Here he is explaining their whole novel treatment. This guy, so Ian Jenkins, the Human Genome Project researcher, is also involved in this company. He's on the scientific advisory board for this company, which is called Genetic Lifespan. And I mean, this video is just crazy.
What if it?
What the promises they make, the technology that this the claims they make here.
It's possible to look into your future and know the exact duration of your lifespan. Not just to merely know, but to be afforded the choice of extending your life expectancy. By leveraging our genetic testing breakthroughs in epigenetic science, with the power of AI technology, the impossible has now become a scientific reality. With age code.
3, 2, 1.
The next.
Again, this is all on the assumption that they have a model for human biology, a working model that is so accurate they can do this stuff. We're going to figure out how to extend your life.
Leap forward in DNA profiling that can decipher the genome coding of your cells and provide you,
aka the Human Genome Project,
with the ability to biohack the quality of your health, equipping you with the results of your complete DNA profile, full methylation, chronological age, biological age, and a 1 million biomarker report of all the deficiencies responsible for aging your body. And by using the report's suggested insights into your epigenetic health, accepting the current rate of your aging will soon become optional. Learn how to reprogram the genetic expression of your cells and how they affect your health. Since only 25% of your aging is influenced by the genetic hard coding from your biological parents, a staggering 75% of your epigenetic programming remains open and available to recode. Accessible to change the behaviors of your body based solely on the controllable factors of your lifestyle. By using your age code test results to discover how susceptible your body is to aging factors such as diet, age-related diseases, biological factors, and other health conditions, you'll finally have the opportunity to go beyond just reading your DNA and actually allow it to alter how it affects the quality of your future. And it all starts from the biomarker results generated from a single vial of your sequenced blood, extracted within only minutes during the age code blood collection kit process, conveniently shipped and delivered to your home or office after sign-up.
Man, this is creepy. This is extremely creepy. But you know, they're telling you they're going to do this to benefit you so you can maximize your longevity, but they're doing this for the Human Genome Project because they need to get as much unique genetic data as possible to run it through their AI. That's something I learned from Jonathan Cooey. And
only will you soon learn the areas of deficiency that have expedited the aging of your cells, you'll also be provided with the suggested genetic products and service advancements engineered to repair them. With your report's recommended cellular support supplement series Living Gene, you'll gain access to our epigenetic genome products formulated to aid and slow the aging process of your body with precision and accuracy. Strategically paired with your biomarker results to help maintain healthy cell numbers and vitality, detox the corruption of your body's genetic software, preserve healthy hormone levels, and additional dietary capsule, tablet, and liquid pouch products purposed to reduce the telomere burn rate, prevent a dysfunctional immune system breakdown.
Okay, this is like torture for me, but anyway, I think you get the idea. Lloyd's of London. Anyway, I think there's more I want to say. I think I'm gonna leave it there, but this is where you can find me. This is the work I want to be doing. Please check out my website, Uncaptured Media. Pull it up here, uncaptured.media. Watch there, get away from YouTube, get off of social media. You're not, you are not going to see people other than Jonathan Cooey and Mark Kulak. I can't find anyone else. I hope I'm wrong. Who are doing this kind of thing, who are looking at what's actually going on. Everyone just, all the anti-imperialists and leftists that I used to rub shoulders with are taken in. They don't bother to even consider what's going on in the United States, in our own country. I'm talking about the Americans. They think that Israel controls everything. Little Israel controls Trump. Max Blumenthal says Donald Trump wants to cut off weapons to Israel, but Netanyahu will have him assassinated. I mean, that's a crazy thing. That's a nonsense thing to say. You have to be an idiot to believe that. I'm sorry. Or, a skilled user of social media. Again, that is a term I borrow from Jonathan Cooey. But that's what it is. You take social media seriously. You're good at it, as I, did or maybe was. And you largely believe what's in front of you. And that's why someone who is intelligent as Max Blumenthal, for example, believes this nonsense and ignores everything about will never examine anything going on with India or the fentanyl crisis or any of that stuff. And, insists that lab leak is real and interviews Jeffrey Sachs about why the lab leak is real. He's just one example. The entire podcast sphere, social media sphere, is a big fraud on America, on the world. And, I tell people to attempt to seek truth on social media to speak truth on social media is to pour fresh water into the sea. To seek truth on social media is to attempt to drink that fresh water in return. That's the truth about it. So stop drinking the seawater that's making you go crazy and lose touch with reality, and start drinking fresh water. Share this, send it around. Check out the work that Jonathan Cooey, Mark Kulak are doing, and find a way to gather news, learn about what's going on in the world without doing it through the lens of this social media, social engineering these platforms, whether it's Instagram or Facebook, and that's what has to be done. So that's the first step, and I think that's where I'll leave it. So thank you very much for joining. I'm gonna try to do these as much as I can. It's I work. I have a business that I'm running, and I take care of a family. So I just do this as much as I can in between, and it's constantly on my mind. It's constantly in my thoughts, but there's only so much time I can devote to it. So I hope I'll be able to do more. Part of it is just nailing down the technical aspects of this, which are very much a work in progress. And you know, today was a huge amount of information. There's a lot of information. I hope I didn't flood you with information and overwhelm, but this is there are some days that are going to be like that, and I'm trying to get down some basics. There's a lot I'm working on so I can get down basics of what people need to understand. So I'll have hopefully more very soon. So thanks again. I'm Dan Cohen. Tuesday, May 19th on